Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Stan Houston for On the Edge, one of the features of the Christian Entrepreneur Network. We do what it takes, video programs like this, and then go on the edge. And of course, the Jesus Entrepreneur Program, which we call the Master Entrepreneur. That is an ongoing radio podcast. I've been very busy lately. First of all, I'm just stepping into the studio after I did a spokesperson presentation for a group that is helping people particularly reduce some of the anxiety about how to file for their Social Security. And they try and help people like me who are in that part and stage and age of life, how to do that and do it well. And so I'm a part of being the spokesperson for those fine people in what is called Einstein Social Security. Also, I'm in the point right now of telling you, isn't it interesting to note that in this first week of Lent, the coronavirus has certainly hit at least what many people think are the crisis proportions. And obviously it will be and is in many parts of the world, and we wonder if it's going to affect and how it will affect us. Right at the beginning of Lent. Well, what I'd like to do briefly on this first weekend is to just ask you to think about what I call the Jesus nap factor. Yes, right. The Jesus nap factor. One of the stories that we will find as we're seeking to find out how we can be imitating the master entrepreneur is that rather fascinating story about Jesus and his crew was out on a boat, and all of a sudden a storm came up. Now these were experienced boat and sea guys there, so obviously they would have checked the weather out and tried to do a little forecasting, and if they saw something bad on the horizon, they would have stayed closer to shore, or they would have said, we're going to walk on this one. But they didn't, so they went out and they got caught in the midst of an incredible storm. A boat sinking, life-threatening storm. Well, Jesus is there, and he's taking a nap. A nap. N-A-P. And that is the epitome of a quality and a skill that we need to have as Christian entrepreneurs, as Jesus-following entrepreneurs. Non-anxious presence. Non-anxious, non-anxiety presence. And they don't know what to do. And so they say, well, wake up Jesus! And you would think, well, he must have been awful calm and awful collected and perhaps really deep in the spirit, because he was sleeping through the whole thing. And they wake him up. And he smiles at them and says, don't be afraid. One of his favorite sayings, and one of God's favorite saying, is don't be afraid. And you know the story. With a few words, he calms the storm. And of course, oh my goodness, talk about signs and wonders. The storm obeys this guy? Who are we with? And Jesus gently chastises them for they're being scared. And I think he probably did it with a smile. Reminds them that, he's there, he's here, maybe he's everywhere. And there's some power available to him that is rather unusual. He might have had a strong dose of God's creative power, which, by the way, is the motto of the Christian Entrepreneur Network. We are seeking God's creative power. And it implies in the story that he gently reminded them that maybe they could have done the same thing. just maybe, maybe they could have commanded the storm to be still. Well, I used that story, and a number of years ago, particularly during the financial crisis where I was working very pointedly in the financial services, I did a little workshop called Communicating Confidence in a Time of Crisis. Communicating confidence in a time of crisis. They say that during World War II, Winston Churchill made it a point when people were kind of losing their heads about things, he would take time out to not only perhaps take a little dose of brandy, but he would then engage in his painting. Churchill knew that to win the war and to be the leader he had he had to have almost a mystical sense of the NAP factor, non-anxious presence. Well, today I'd like us to believe that perhaps that's what is needed. It's going to be what it's going to be. And obviously, good men and women are working hard to keep the coronavirus under control. And please keep in mind, this has happened before. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posy, ashes, ashes, all fall down. And on this past Ash Wednesday, we remembered that when we were told, ashes, ashes, that we will die. We all will die, but perhaps not now. And let us have the non-anxious presence to believe that we can make it through and help others do so. And by the way, that little children's rhyme was actually done during a terrible, terrible plague that in the Middle Ages wiped out thousands, perhaps millions of people. We've been in these boxes before. We've been here before. God has been faithful to us before. And so may I just encourage you as you see, read, and hear all the flippers and the flappers and the noisemakers and all of the crisis crowd out there. We are called to have deep in our hearts, minds, and spirits the Jesus NAP factor. So pray for that. As I said my morning prayers, as I'm involved in a number of crisis things, I said, Jesus, give me your non-anxious presence. Help me rest well. Help me to deliver me from all fretfulness. Help me, perhaps even when I'm tired, to take a nap. I'm Stan Houston. This is especially important for those of us who are always, as Christian entrepreneurs, living on the edge. May it go well for you. God is in control. Ultimately, all will be well. May the peace of the Lord be with you. And may you discover during this special Lenten time that there is some deep, deep power available to you. The very same power that took Jesus through not only the death and passion, but the power of the resurrection. Blessings and peace. Bye for now.